That punch was sudden, ugly, and cost the Commanders more than just one player for the night. Midway through the second quarter, after Jahmyr Gibbs' touchdown, Commanders defensive tackle Daron Payne turned and struck Lions receiver Amon-Ra St. in the face mask, a blow seen on the broadcast and in multiple replays, and was immediately flagged and ejected. ESPN.com Detroit rode that momentum. The unsportsmanlike conduct penalty moved the ball into makeable range, and the Lions went for two, converting on a David Montgomery run that pushed the lead even wider. Detroit finished the day rolling to a 44-22 victory. Pride of Detroit. It was a brutal snapshot of a team already slipping. The loss extended Washington's slide and exposed how thin the margin for error has become. The Commanders surrendered more than 540 yards and multiple touchdowns as Detroit dominated the box score. The Washington Post. A few contextual notes worth flagging. Payne is a high-profile veteran who signed a 4-year, $90 million extension with Washington in 2023. So his ejection is not just a one-game personnel hit. It strips the front of the line of a leader and forces the staff to shuffle snaps and rotations. ESPN.com. Beyond the immediate scoreboard impact, incidents like this matter for three reasons. First, they swing field position and momentum in an instant, as happened here when the penalty effectively gifted Detroit the two-point conversion and helped seal the blowout. Pride of Detroit. Second, the league and club will very likely review the tape for further discipline, fines, or suspension, so the Commanders may be without Payne beyond this game. And third, the eruption exposes locker room stress. Washington has been banged up and inconsistent, and tempers boiling over on the field tend to be a symptom, not the root cause of deeper issues. The Washington Post for the Lions, it was the sort of garbage time flourish teams dream of, a dominant offensive day and easy scoreboard management. For Washington, it's now damage control. Rework the defensive rotation, manage any league discipline, and try to steady a locker room that's been rocked by injuries and losses lately. The Washington Post bottom line, the punch was a self-inflicted wound. It altered the game, left Payne out of the lineup that night, and adds another unwanted subplot to a Commanders season that's already spiraling. The league clip will be replayed, the team will answer for it, and Washington's challenge is to make sure this moment becomes a turning point for accountability. Not another chapter in a downward run, ESPN.com. Sometimes a box score tells one story and a single moment tells another. Sunday's 44-22 loss in Detroit will be remembered for the scoreboard and for a moment that stole the headlines. Commanders defensive tackle Daron Payne was ejected after throwing a punch that connected with Amon-Ra St. Brown's helmet. It happened early in the second quarter, right after Jahmyr Gibbs finished a 13-yard touchdown run. Payne turned toward St. Brown, threw a right hook, and the hit landed square on the face mask. Officials threw the flag for unsportsmanlike conduct and immediately ejected Payne. The penalty improved Detroit's field position and set up a successful two-point conversion that helped turn a one-score game into a rout. The play mattered on the scoreboard, and it mattered more as a symbol. Frustration boiled over at the worst possible time. Punching another player is never acceptable, and it's especially dangerous when helmets are involved. The league takes that seriously. Ejections, fines, and suspensions follow clear precedent. The play didn't spark a bench-clearing fight, but the consequences were immediate and costly. An ejection, a penalty that swung momentum, and a likely review by the NFL that could end in further discipline. That's the arithmetic of emotional football moments. Heat creates reckless action, and the game mercilessly charges the tab. Context doesn't excuse the hit, but it helps explain it. Payne is a veteran and a high-paid leader in that locker room. He signed a 4-year, $90 million extension in 2023 and entered the game with a stat line that was solid but not dominant. On a day when the Commanders were getting steamrolled, Detroit scored on its first 8 drives and produced one of the most efficient offensive performances you'll see. Frustration can bubble up. That doesn't make the punch acceptable. It makes it understandable as a symptom of a team that is fraying. The competitive fallout was immediate. The Lions converted the penalty into points and kept pouring it on. Washington lost interior strength on the defensive front for the rest of the game. Losing Payne cost them matchups and rotations. Psychologically, too, It signaled a team losing its grip. The Commanders, who reached the postseason last year, now sit in a 5-game slide. Injuries have bitten. Jayden Daniels remains out after last week's elbow injury, and the roster has shown cracks in discipline and execution. Moments like Payne's strike become shorthand for broader issues. From a league standpoint, expect a review. The NFL will examine all available angles, broadcast footage, sideline clips, and the referee report, and decide on fines or suspensions. History suggests a multi-thousand-dollar fine is likely, and a suspension is possible if the league views the punch as particularly dangerous or if Payne has prior infractions. Whatever the ruling, the team already paid the competitive price in the game. Inside the building, coaches and front office leaders face immediate work. The staff will have to manage the optics and the locker room fallout, emphasizing discipline and emotional control in practice. The special teams and offensive units that gave the Lions breathing room are equally culpable for the scoreline. Coaches should expect blunt conversations about accountability. For the players, this is a teachable, painful moment. Frustration is part of football, but discipline is what wins games. Detroit, by contrast, walked away with a comprehensive win. They dominated phases of the game: offense, special teams, and situational execution, and the Payne incident only widened the gap. For opponents, the clip is now a scouting addendum. Get opponents to lose their cool, and you manufacture advantages. That's the ugly takeaway for Washington. The Lions simply executed better and let the scoreboard tell the story. There will be ripple effects. If the league issues a suspension, Washington will have to reshuffle its defensive front and expose depth issues. Young players will be thrown into larger roles, and schematic plans will need minor surgery to compensate for lost interior force. If the punishment is a fine only, the competitive damage already done remains the headline. Either way, the team must embrace immediate corrective measures: more structure in practice, better situational reps, and a renewed emphasis on emotional control late in games. This is also a human story. These are professional athletes operating under enormous stress and continuous scrutiny. Mistakes and overreactions happen. Part of being a pro is learning to channel intensity without crossing lines. Veteran players are expected to model that behavior. When they don't, it amplifies the disappointment. Fans and media will judge Payne harder because of his role and salary. That's fair. Leadership carries higher expectations. For broadcasters and editors, the visual sequence is obvious. Show the touchdown replay, cut to Payne's punch in slow motion, show the ejection flag and the Lions converting the 2-point try, then pull back to the scoreboard ticking away. The narrative writes itself: a dominant opponent, a fraying defense, and a veteran losing control. It's clean, dramatic television, but the onus remains on the Commanders to make their response match the seriousness of the moment. Final takeaway: the incident will likely overshadow the box score this week. The Lions get the win and move on. The Commanders must clean up a loss that reads like more than a single bad day. Discipline is currency in the NFL. Waste it on a punch, and opponents cash it in immediately. Coaches will preach control. The players will have to prove it. The rest of the season will show whether Payne's ejection was an isolated lapse from a frustrated veteran or a symptom of a deeper problem that needs fixing fast.